Hi! Hello,
Hello.
everyone. As StreamYard would say, it's showtime. I love that it
Oop.
says that whenever, it's a few seconds left before we go live. So, hello and welcome, everyone, to yet another Thomas Hardy Readalong live show. I am, as always, joined by my wonderful friend, Milena.
Wait,
um,
it's like the mirroring is so confusing.
I was like, Milena. No, Milena. Yeah, that's okay. So yes, if you're watching, please do say hi. And today we are going to discuss the return of the native. Do you
I
have
don't
your
have
book
my
with you?
book with me. I just have my
Okay.
notebook. Woo!
Oh, that's pretty though.
I know it is pretty. It was a Christmas gift, but the book
Oh,
is in my trolley behind me. So
there you go.
unfortunate.
Well, I'm gonna show my cover then. This is one that I found at a thrifted bookshop, and I really, really love it. So there you go. So yes, if you have read the book, we would love to hear your thoughts, your ratings, if you have any. But in case you still haven't read this one, we always start our live shows with a spoiler-free section. So if you haven't read it, stay. You're free to stay for just a couple of minutes. I will insert here a banner for you to see while we are talking non-spoilers and ratings if anyone has them. So, with that said, would you like to share some of your general thoughts and a rating if you have one yet?
I mean, I would like to, but as I just said to you, I was doing a whole bunch of things that was not reading my notes, and I finished it 2 weeks ago. So I'll read you. No, I'm kidding.
That's perfect.
Oh, apparently I wrote down that it felt like a typical Thomas Hardy with some Wuthering Heights quality mixed into it,
Mm,
which I guess I cannot say anything more about in the non-spoiler section.
I guess.
Um, but yeah, it definitely was a typical Thomas Hardy with the setting and with the way that the characters were introduced. I think we mentioned in reading sprints that it was a very slow beginning, that the setup
Mm-hmm,
was a lot of characters that didn't seem to be part of the plot, which we
mm-hmm,
can talk about later, of course. But yeah, I really liked the more romantic drama in this book
mm-hmm,
because I think generally, while there is a lot of discussion on marriage and there are a lot of romantic relationships in Thomas Hardy's books, there isn't really any romance.
mm-hmm,
Or yeah, I'm thinking of Jude, and maybe there was some but I found this way more romantic. Let's just say it that way.
mm-hmm,
And I really did enjoy that, and there were definitely some things in the second half of the book that I found more dramatic and romantic, and I did really enjoy that. But I'm not sure this one necessarily stands out for me. Thomas
mm-hmm,
Hardy that we have read so far and that I've read personally, and I gave it a
mm-hmm.
4 stars, just a very solid Thomas Hardy.
Yeah, 4 stars is good. That's a good rating.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure, like, I guess that's something we can share in this non-spoiler section. I can share mine as well. If you were to maybe place it, like if you were to place it against Jude and the Woodlanders, which are the two books we've read so far for the read along, would you say, like, where does it stand for you? Is it your least favorite so far or kind of in between?
I think I enjoyed the Woodlanders more, but
Hmm.
I think this one is way more memorable. And
Hmm.
neither of us really enjoyed Jude, I think, if I remember
No.
this right. No.
Hmm.
So I think this one tops it, probably. But I already forgotten what the Woodlanders is about. Like, honestly, they're so similar in characters.
I do think they're similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
That's okay.
and that also makes me think like how commercial was Thomas Hardy, because of course right now we see these as classics, we see it as literature, um, but knowing the way he published it, like a section at a time, mostly.
Hmm.
I don't know if all his novels were published that way, but
Hmm.
I feel like he was also very much writing for an audience and writing for to make money with his pen. So I
Hmm.
wonder like what the commercial value as well was with Thomas Hardy himself.
Hmm. Hmm.
That it was
Yeah.
like, how do you say this? Just a way that he knew the readers would like it, and that is the way he wrote his novels.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well, like, because you said you you already don't remember very well what the Woodlanders was about, and I don't either. So I'm not sure what that says about our reading experience. But I will say they all feel like especially when it comes to his writing. I feel like it's so particular the way he describes the setting and the characters. You can immediately tell that it is a Thomas Hardy novel, which is a good thing because he has a very distinct voice. But at the same time,
Yeah.
when we're reading his books kind of back to back, even though we give it a bit of space, obviously, like bi-monthly kind of, but it can get a bit mixed up. Like all of the stories start to
Yes.
feel a bit similar. So yes, I do get it. However, I have to say, I think this is the one that I enjoyed reading the most so far. Um,
Woohoo.
Maybe it was influenced by the audiobook. I will say that it was an incredible reading experience.
Yes.
um, so, in case anyone is not aware, the audiobook is narrated by Alan Rickman, and it improves everything. So that might also have a little influence on it. But other than that, I do agree with what you said. I haven't thought about it that way, but it does have some Wuthering Heights qualities to it, which I kind of like the way you put that. Um, I definitely feel like it's the most romantic so far, even though I don't think the story is about love necessarily.
Mhm.
So it's not really that type of romance, but it's romantic in a way it tells the story, I feel like, and very dramatic. I love how
Yeah.
nature plays a huge part in it, and destiny as well, which we'll get to. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I think I also gave it 4 stars. Which is the highest rating for me so far, so that's good. And I'm excited to talk about all of these dramatic, messy characters as usual. That will be
It's
fun.
like a it's like a Greek drama. This
Yes,
a Greek tragedy, maybe.
it is a little bit, yes, in some
Yeah.
aspects, for sure. I agree, but it's fun. It makes for a fun read. Sometimes I was laughing a little bit, which I do think the novel has some comic relief scenes sometimes, so you can handle all the tragedy that comes with it. I
Yeah, I
would
think
say,
I know what you mean. It's like, but it's the kind of comedy that is like, well, did they say tragedy plus timing makes comedy?
yeah, yeah.
There's one character that um he's called Christian, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And a lot of things he does is just oh.
Like, oh no, what is happening
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. I was
Um,
so surprised when I read a little bit more about the book that he is in his 30s. I was like, wait,
yeah,
no, I was reading about a teenage boy, wasn't I?
no, you weren't. Apparently
No.
not. Yeah, but it would have made sense. Yes, I was also surprised when I found that because I also pictured a teenager in my head. So
Yeah.
for sure. Um, but yes, I do appreciate all the themes. I'm particularly excited to talk about all the relationships that are gathered here. So we'll see how
Hmm.
that discussion goes. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, hello, hello. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Um, and yes, if anyone has any spoiler-free thoughts so far to share with us, please feel free to do so. But if that's everything for this section, unless you want to add anything, but shall we move on to spoilers, maybe?
Yeah, I
Ooh,
was looking at things and no, I don't have any spoiler-free thoughts anymore.
I feel like this always happens. We are just looking forward to getting to the spoilers.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So yes, this is your warning, everyone. In case you haven't read the book, and in case you're watching this live show back, I will add the banner here once again with all the timestamps in the description as well. From now on, we will be talking spoilers for the entire book, so just be aware of that. All right. With all that said, where shall we begin? Because I feel like there's so much to talk about. Um,
Yes.
yes. Do you have a specific moment that you would like to start with?
I mean, most of the things that I want to talk about are at the end of the book, like plot wise. So
Hmm.
maybe we should wait for that a little bit.
Okay, that's
But
interesting. Hmm.
you, I think, had a question about, um, well, I called it destiny, but I don't know what your wording was
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like, yes, I was talking about nature because I looked at nature as a character and also
Ooh, yeah.
connected to destiny in a certain way because, and since we are in a spoiler section, I feel like the conditions of this place, which was called Egdon Heath, I believe, just
Yes,
to
they called it the Heath, I believe.
yes, exactly. So the way it is described, it is as being a very vast and big and beautiful place filled of trees and greenery and plants. It feels very mystical in a way and magical to me, which it's very interesting because there are some sort of, I wouldn't call them supernatural necessarily, but there are some superstitions here throughout the book and some
Mhm.
rituals that I feel like have to do with some folklore beliefs and everything. But it is also described as a dangerous place if you do not respect it, which eventually also comes to be the end for some of the characters who end up dying towards the end of the novel. So I feel like it plays a huge part in characters' destinies, also because it has to do with how each one of the characters feels about this place. Some of them absolutely despise it and want to leave it, and some others respect it and want to work there, want to live there permanently. So yes, I think it's kind of connected to that idea of destiny that you mentioned, and I did want to touch on that because I thought it was a beautiful thing that Thomas Hardy did. Um, Especially with the first chapter, I feel like he writes so beautifully all the time. All of his
Yeah.
descriptions are stunning, so I just wrote it down immediately. And yes, it plays a huge role in the story, so maybe that's where you were going with. I'm not sure if you would like
I
to.
mean, I was not, but I liked what you were doing with it. Wait, where are my
Mhm.
notes? I'm so confused. Okay.
The note.
Um,
Yeah.
I oh right, I'm right here. I'm sorry, I'm such a mess.
Oh no, that's totally
Um,
fine, don't worry. Yeah.
yeah, what you just said made me think of the way they died because I thought
Hmm.
that was such a significant scene.
Hmm.
Um, I wrote down the way Stacia, Clem, and Damon get drawn out of the water seems significant to the story. Clem first as rescuer, Damon
Hmm.
clinging to Clem,
Hmm.
Stacia beyond saving, but she drowns, not floating, with the witch metaphor.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I
Hmm.
I read it online that someone said the way that she's portrayed is that everyone kind of thought she was a witch, especially
Hmm.
that one woman, and how
Yeah.
she then died while not floating.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the way you said it, like they didn't respect the heath or they didn't want to be there.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Klim, like he left, but he came back and he didn't want to leave again.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's almost like the heath rejected the people who didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. That's also why I put it as kind of versus modern world because it felt
Yes.
like, right, whenever a character who didn't respect the earth or the heath in this case, or again, did live there but wanted to maybe work on a different field that had nothing to do with nature or the working class, which is also a big theme here. It's like you said, it's kind of like nature just rejected those people, which ended up. So we have three deaths in this novel, right? We have
Oh, yes, we have Mrs. Yeobright as well.
yes, exactly. Which I feel like is the only one. Well, she also kind of dies. Well, it's a mixture. For her, is a bit different because she dies of a broken heart as well. She feels like her son denied like her entering her house again, right when they had like a huge fight. Yeah, and then she does end up dying like in the dark. I believe she goes on a long walk and it's very hot
Yes.
and she doesn't. Yeah, so nature also comes into play with that, but I feel like it's a bit different. Then we have the other two characters that you mentioned, which was a bit of a dramatic scene. I was kind of
So dramatic.
yeah. My God, I was not really expecting it, but yes, that did happen. I guess I should have been expecting it in a Thomas Hardy novel, but I don't know.
Well, after reading Jude, I feel like he can do anything
Hmm.
because if you can do that, then yes, you can
Yeah.
have people drown. That's not a big deal.
Oh my God, I know, but it was so sudden, and then suddenly, like in the next chapter, we were already planning another wedding because sure, let's do that. I don't know.
It was really
I-
fast, I agree.
yeah. Oh
What
my
did you
God.
think of like Mrs. Yeobright as a character? Because while I had like sympathies for her, I
Mm-hmm.
did feel like that to a modern eye.
Mm,
mm,
mm.
I felt like if that was my mother-in-law, I'd be so pissed.
That's very true. It's funny that you say that though, because I think she was my favorite character. Not
Oh,
because, obviously, not because I agreed with what she said, not that necessarily, but because I feel like she was the most intriguing one, and also because I felt like while she had some very conservative views, perhaps, um, I also do feel like she genuinely cared about her son and her niece, and
Hmm.
it was one of the first instances where I thought, okay, at least someone here genuinely cares for another person and has good intentions, despite
That's
maybe,
true.
right, despite maybe not really believing certain right things, I would say. But I do think she was coming from a good place, and so I
Oh
sympathize
yes.
with her a lot, and I was actually quite sad when she died. So, so there's
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I did have some issues, I think, just with her self-righteousness a
Mm-hmm,
little
mm-hmm.
bit.
For sure.
I found that a little bit difficult. I feel like, okay, your son has made this choice and you've not given your future daughter-in-law, like, you have not had a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
or you've not tried.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that I found that a little bit difficult for,
Mm-hmm.
and then when she died, I felt like I don't think it was like a punishment of nature, like with the other
Mm.
deaths. I really felt like she died so that Klim could have his character development.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know. Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt about all the deaths, honestly. Like, it was also very convenient for the other two to die so that,
Mhm.
Klim and Thomasin um, were finally free to move on with their lives and, each one in
Yeah.
their path. So it was a bit convenient. I do agree. Yeah. Um,
Well, mm, I'm not sure, but I feel like y- Thomas Hardy could have written it in a way that they would have been happier than they
mhm,
were.
mm,
But he punishes. Thomas Hardy punishes his characters if they break certain moral rules. There's no
mhm,
coming back from that. And
yeah.
oh, I'm so excited to talk about Tess in the future because I
Oh,
feel
right.
like that is the only book where he did it a little bit differently.
Hmm,
But here
that's
I
very
felt
intriguing.
very much like actions had consequences,
Yes.
Victorian style. So
Yeah. Actually, it's very funny that you mentioned that because, yeah, I guess we're talking about the ending, so sure.
oh
I I read, I read that. So we know how Thomasin does get. I'm saying her name wrong. Maybe I'm so sorry.
no, I don't
But
think so.
no, um,
Tamsin, maybe? I don't know.
Thompson. Maybe.
No, I think they call her Tamsin and Thomasin. I think that's like her whole
Okay.
Christian name.
Okay. There you go. So she does get married in the end to V- Ven. Oh God, what's his
Yes,
name?
Diggory Van.
Diggory, exactly. Diggory Van. All right.
Yeah.
And I read that Thomas Hardy actually didn't plan for that ending, but
Yes,
the
I read it too.
Victorian public needed somewhat of a happy ending, and so that's what he did. So I would be interested actually in hearing what the actual ending he prepared would be. I'm not sure. I didn't find that exactly, but I would be curious to see because maybe it would be just pain for everyone. um, but yeah, don't know. I remember reading
I
about.
also don't know. I found Diggory Van unreliable in
True.
how good of a person he was because I feel like he had such a moral high ground with any things on class. And like when Thomas Hardy punishes, he also rewards.
Mhm,
Because if you are a good person in his books, then you get to marry the pretty girl, like Dickory Van did.
mhm, mhm.
The way he worked himself up, yes, the Rattleman.
Yes.
Um, I did really like that. That's
Mhm,
someone who we viewed as very undesirable in society.
mm,
When he like got a different appearance, that he actually was just a really nice man.
mhm,
But
mhm.
a nice man all along. But I also feel like we got him through a very selective eye, and I'm not sure I trust him.
Yeah.
Um, which
Mhm.
I found him a difficult character. Did you like him?
I'm not sure because it's like you said, he appeared to be a good man, and apparently he did some honest work throughout his life, being a Rattleman. But it's like you said, it's always in a very deceiving perspective, I would say. It feels like no one in this novel is truly honest, which was again one of the themes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We are always seeing the events through unreliable characters, which to me is very interesting. But like you said, I'm not sure I fully trust him because it seems like everyone has second intentions they're either not talking about, or when the characters do speak up about what they want, the other ones, so the ones that will be marrying them, and we can talk about this in a little bit, it feels to me like they were trying to change each other. Like when Eustacia, I think, said that she wanted to go to Paris because that's her dream. She wanted to live a much more modern life. And she did end up marrying to someone who told her, well, that's not actually my plan, so we can maybe stay here and have a plan B. And I feel like she married him assuming that eventually he would change his mind. So I feel like throughout the entire novel, we have this very unreliable perspective all the time. And that applies to Diggory as well. So to answer your question, I'm not sure I trust him because I don't really fully trust any of the characters, I don't think. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, to me, it's a similar reading experience when I read Anna Karenina, where I only really trusted the people who were portrayed as bad, because no one portrays themselves as bad when they are working to write a story or tell a story in their own favor. So I think the only people really trusted that were told reliably were Eustacia and Wildleaf, because it was their perspective, it was their story to tell. They would not written themselves this way.
Yeah.
And with Anna Karenina, like, okay, we'll not go into it, but Levin, I'm sure. Like,
well,
it was clearly his story to tell. So also from his point of view. And that's why I trusted characters like Anna much more. So yeah. Also Damon Wildleaf, like the name, amazing.
I cannot. And I was foolish enough at the start, like right at the start of the novel, when they were like, "Oh, you didn't marry her because you still love me." I was thinking, "Oh my God, what a sweet love story this will be." No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Sweet Summer Child. It was not neither sweet nor a love story. So there's that.
Yeah. I found it very reminiscent of Cathy and Heathcliff, those two.
I agree. Yeah, that's a very good comparison. I hadn't thought about that, but I do agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why I enjoyed and loved them, because again, Wuthering Heights also has such an unreliable narration. But the horrible people, you can trust that they were actually horrible,
Yeah, that's very true. All right, let me see. Hi, Hildur.
No.
Read this book last year, so it's not fresh in my mind, but I remember parts and I thought it was a great book. Yay! How does nature in Return of the Native compare to it in The Mayor of Casterbridge? Is Hardy consistent or predictable? Ooh, yes, Casterbridge. I guess I don't remember all the details from The Mayor of Casterbridge, but based on all the novels we've read so far, I would say he's consistent for sure, because I feel like he always gives nature a huge part in the novel, in some different aspects maybe, but I feel like that's always a present theme. Is he predictable? Well, he tends to kill off a lot of characters, and like Milena was talking about, actions having consequences is also something that's always present. So I guess you could say he's somewhat predictable, but sometimes, at least to me, like when it happened in this novel, I can't really see exactly when it's going to happen, like a tragic event, or how it's going to happen. But that's how I look at it. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts about this question?
I mean, I've not read The Mayor of Casterbridge, so I cannot really compare it to that. But I do think there's a certain predictability in it, but to me that has more to do with the plot, I feel, than with the nature elements in it. But I will have to say that I'm not that sharp of a reader when it comes to nature metaphors. I think I read over that a lot. It's just like me in life. Like, I don't find nature that interesting. I find people interesting. So I feel like when I read a book, I mainly just really focus on dialogue and on how the people are behaving and how the story is told. So I don't know. I would have to pay more attention, I'm afraid, to really answer this question. But I think there's a certain predictability within his plots and within the type of characters that we get introduced to. I made a little character list with my notes, and I called Damon Wildleaf the dude, because every Thomas Hardy has a dude. Eustacia Vi she's a bit of a Victorian cliche. She's the
Mm-hmm.
femme fatale.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like we see those characters a lot. But then again, we need to read Tess at some point because that book is
I
so different
know.
in a way from the other ones.
Oh my god. I feel like Tess should be, well, this is a big statement to make here, but maybe it should be our last book of the read along,
That is a really good plan. Yes.
right? I'm not saying
Yeah.
it will be soon. Hold on. But
No, 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 no. Yeah.
whenever it
Because then
comes, I feel like.
I think I'll be so brokenhearted that I'm like, no more Thomas Hardy, leave me alone.
Well, also because I feel like we're doing a good job. We're reading a lot of his novels.
Mhm.
We have a few left, but I feel like maybe not that many. I'm actually not sure, but yeah.
I
Um,
think there are a lot of books that are just not really read anymore, and I'm,
mhm,
I'm not sure if it's really worth
mhm.
our along our time to read all of them. Like I
Yeah.
know that his debut is not well received, or like
Mm,
right now.
yeah.
Um, but I think there's still more few, and of course, Far From a Many Crowds, something we also very much still need to read.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's on the list for sure. Um, were you not intrigued by the woman with the voodoo doll? um, do you remember her? She was a minor character,
Oh,
I
I
believe,
think
but
so. I think she was one of the people in the beginning.
yeah, I
She was
think
part of
so.
that group, right?
Yes, gossiping about stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, she was the one who said that Eustacia was a witch, right?
Yeah,
Was it?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do think she was a necessary character to
Mm.
really round up the vilification of Eustacia.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I would have liked a little bit more about her, like the village nut drop.
Actually, me too. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I was mentioning when we were talking about, again, it's not a supernatural element, but it's definitely kind of a superstition about people,
Yeah,
especially surrounding Eustacia, definitely. And I do agree that it contributes to her character a lot, the way people see her as well. And I feel like maybe she was also like very influenced by that. Her own actions were influenced by other people's perception about her, I feel like. So
yeah.
I was actually intrigued by the woman. Maybe this was a funny question, but I actually was. Yeah.
I also wondered mostly in this book, like looking at her and looking at Christian, who, of course, I mean, he plays a very significant role, but he has a very small part.
Mhm.
I feel like how actually does Thomas Hardy look at people from a lower class? Because the
Mm.
way they behave like children,
Mhm.
but then also he does give them a lot of, not a lot, but he gives them some time and dialogue. So he
Yeah.
does see their value, but
Mhm.
how exactly does he view them intellectually? Because
Yeah.
he doesn't give them much credit. He like shows how easy it is to get addicted, like with Christian,
Mhm.
which I found very interesting that he had so little self-control, and it felt like he was a 12-year-old boy when we had that scene with him and Wildleaf and they were playing the game for money.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh God, that whole chapter. Oh my, I was so stressed. I don't know.
oh, me too. But
Yeah.
then also, and I was like, why would I be stressed? Because it's in the same family, the money.
Yeah, I know. But it's the whole thing. Oh, what's hers is mine, and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh no,
Oh,
not this. But yeah.
yes. Yes, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Also, like I got a little bit of an ick when he still put the money in his shoes. I was like, oh, that's disgusting.
Why would you do that? Honestly,
Can you imagine someone giving you money and just from their shoe, here you
I
go, and then you have to
know.
touch it?
I know. It's also not safe at all. I mean, come on, don't do that.
I mean, if you get robbed, I don't know if people look in your shoes. They maybe look in your
Well,
pockets.
fortunately, I've never had that experience, so I cannot say. I don't know. But anyway, I don't think I would put it on my shoes.
I don't know. I feel like Christian was streetwise, so he would have done it
Yeah,
with a reason.
that's also true. I guess so. Um, but yes, it's interesting your question about Thomas Hardy's views on, local people and more of the, it's difficult because, like you were saying, he gives them a lot of time, a lot of dialogue, and I feel like when it comes to morality, it's almost as if he's saying that those are the good people
Mhm.
because they're, and this feels very wrong to say. I'm not saying I believe this, but sometimes it feels to me that because they are less intellectual, they are closer to nature and, maybe some humble values, then they're more, morally speaking, better than other people that live more in the modern world, so become more, more intellectual or whatever it is. But those also always feel like the villains of the story to me. But at the
Absolutely.
same time, it's like we're saying, they do act like children. They seem a bit silly all the time. So it feels a bit, I'm not sure if that's a contradiction or not. It's a bit confusing sometimes. Um, so I'm also not sure intellectually how he would feel about those people. Um,
I actually think it does make a lot of sense because again, I'm gonna talk about Anna Karenina, but
Go
that is
ahead.
very present as well. He feels himself to become a better man when he works on the fields,
Yeah, yeah.
but then his relationship with the people on the fields, he doesn't. Mm, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's some good parts in it, but also they're not his equal, and he's very
Mm-hmm.
aware of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that was the way men, like in the mid 19th century, intellectual men thought of people of a different
Yeah.
class. And maybe
Yeah.
there also was a bigger difference because a lot of people were illiterate, of course. So communication was different, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to know if there's a certain philosophy that was prevalent at that time within
Mm-hmm.
these group of men, um, that made them think they were sympathizing, but they were just turning adult people into children in their
Mm-hmm.
mind and
Yeah.
seeing virtue in that.
Yeah. I guess it does feel a bit condescending to me, I feel like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, mm, I don't know. I don't know. But I
I
also
mean,
feel like it's always there in his novels. Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
even if it's lovingly, it's still condescending.
Exactly, exactly. So maybe he did have good intentions, and I feel like he did, based on the way that he describes them, like both the characters and the environment they live in. I do
Mhm.
think he came from a good place, but maybe not in the, like, he didn't really express it very well, or maybe it did come from a good place, but had some weird beliefs behind it as well. I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm not sure.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that it. I think he had a certain love and he romanticized probably their life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I feel like
probably.
Dickens did kind of. Maybe Dickens is an exception actually.
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel like he romanticized poverty, but I feel like he was
Yeah.
very on point when it comes to socialism and stuff. But that's a whole different discussion.
Whole different
Um,
discussion. But it's good. It's fun to compare, I feel like, some authors in these old
I mean,
times.
yeah, they lived during the same time, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
believe.
I think
Yeah,
so. Or roughly the same time, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah. Think so.
Although Thomas Hardy's later than Dickens. Yes, he's later.
I think so.
I think there's a few decades between them. Like,
What's a few decades? It's
I
fine.
know.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, um, Not among my liked novelists, but I have read some of his works, including this one. I don't know why, but the Great Van is one of my favorite characters. Interesting. Interesting. I do think he is intriguing, for
Yes.
sure. She stuck the needle in Eustatius' arm in church.
That was just funny. Sorry.
It is. Oh my god. Um, Christ. Oh, seems to suggest claim as a Christ-like aspect and explicitly gives a clue at the end for those aware of the reference. Okay. Um,
I
maybe
clearly missed that.
I missed that as well, but thank you for letting us know. I'm not exactly sure um, where that would be, but thank you for sharing. Um, did you have any favorite characters? Speaking of which, because I mentioned that Mrs. Yobright,
Yeah,
I think she was my favorite,
I
which
get
is
that.
maybe strange, but I think she was. Did you have any favorites or someone that you particularly loved, like reading their perspective from or something?
Well, I cannot resist a Wuthering Heights thing. So anything that reminds me of Wuthering Heights, I love. So
Yeah.
I really loved Wild Eve and Eustacia when they were together. Like in
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
relation to each other as individuals, not really. Just saying, I don't find Wuthering Heights romantic, but I
Mm-hmm.
like how messed up it is. But actually, like this is very unlike me, but Klim, I think
Okay.
I found his transformation, his emotional transformation, while usually whiny, with characters like him, and I'm sure you know some names are
Yes.
popping up right now. Yes, okay. With him, I was intrigued. I found him interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I enjoyed his perspective, even though
Mm-hmm.
I would not like to meet him. Um,
You wouldn't? I can't see why. I don't know.
he seems lovely.
Listen, he had some lovely aspects. He wanted to work at a school or something to, improve people's lives. That's kind of nice.
It does touch upon what the things we just said.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it does.
Yeah, but I feel like usually his character is so privileged that it's just annoying. But I
Hmm.
felt like he wasn't. I mean, he was privileged, of course, but it didn't make him annoying, which
Hmm.
is like a feat if an author can make me enjoy that. So,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um,
yeah, I had a lot of like, is he actually upstanding? Question mark. Is he unique? Question mark.
I feel like if you have to ask that, maybe you already have your answer.
Ooh, and also I apparently compared him to Bathsheba, which I think is how you
Oh,
say the
mm,
name of the main character from Far From the Main Crowd, which she is maybe my favorite Thomas Hardy character overall. So
mm,
I guess that connection is why I enjoyed him.
interesting. Well, when we read it, we can discuss it.
We also need to discuss how to pronounce her name because they say it different in the film, in audiobooks.
No. I don't
I
know.
like I like Bathsheba the best because it sounds like a witch. And some
Bathsheba?
people say like Bathsheba, but that sounds like cat food. So because like Shiba cat food, I'm like no, no, no.
No, no. Not well, I wouldn't know because I've never even seen it written, so I wouldn't even know how you spell that. But that's worthy of the discussion for
I
that
think
book.
she's I think she's from the Bible as well, the name.
Oh,
I think so.
interesting. It's a shame
Or
because
from myth, but I think the
mm,
Bible.
I feel like I feel like his novels usually do have a lot of religious like references, and unfortunately, I miss most of them for sure. Um,
Yeah, same.
yeah, which maybe is a shame because it probably does add another layer to the story that I just don't really see. Maybe I'll have to look it up a little bit.
I mean, I considered reading a children's Bible. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but then it's
It's
like,
not. It's not.
but then I have no interest in reading the whole thing, and I feel like
Mhm.
that could give me some basic knowledge. I mean, I know my dad kind of tried in the like so that how would I say this, to intellectually educate me
Yeah.
about. Like,
Yeah.
he comes from a religious background, so he
Mm.
he did tell me a few stories with um, illustrations. So but the
Okay.
only thing I remember was the whale. I was like, oh my god, inside the whale.
Like Pinocchio.
I
That's
know, that's what
that's
I
my
thought.
reference. Oh
But
my god.
it's Jonah and the whale is what I remember.
I Yeah.
And that is all I remember because it had an animal. And it's like, oh dad, I like
I
this
know.
story.
The animals are the best part. Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest I
Um,
forgot. So
yeah. I would like to eventually at some like okay, I would like to at some point in my life read all of those big and important religious texts because while I myself am not religious, um, I do think it's part of culture and it would be intriguing to me
that's
to
true.
see to see how people think and how they base their beliefs or what they base some of their beliefs on. I think that's a beautiful thing even if it doesn't really apply to my experience, but it's part of human nature, why
Yes.
people act in certain ways. So I would do that, maybe not now, maybe in a few years, but
Mm.
eventually, yeah, I would be
Saying
open to
that
that.
there's like this series of non-fiction books. Some
Mm.
of them I had to read for college, but they're called A Very Short Introduction. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you know them, but they have usually around 100, 200 pages
Mm.
on different subjects. And I think they're also on subjects of all religions.
Mm.
Um, so that could be a way as well to like educate myself without um, reading an entire text.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be a good idea for sure. Just to, because when we read those classics, I do feel a little sad that I don't get those references because
Hmm.
they probably play a big part, even if, in some predicting, like maybe in the first few chapters, there was a reference or two that really told us the end of the story and I just missed it, maybe.
Yeah.
I would just like to see it once in a while. I think
I
that
mean,
really,
I felt it with the Bronzerlang as well, because
yeah,
especially
exactly.
Charlotte had so many references
Hmm.
to the Bible in her um, books. I think especially in Villette, more than in Jane Eyre,
I
but
think so. Yeah, probably. Hmm.
I missed them as well, of course.
It's okay. It's okay. I never pick up on everything. It's impossible, but it's just a curiosity. Yeah.
But
Um,
names alone, like Bathsheba, like when I read it, I didn't know that she was from the Bible, which I'm pretty sure it is, but
mm,
not entirely sure. Um,
mm,
so now that I do know, and when we will reread it, I think it will be a different experience.
mhm. Well, and thank you for letting me know because now I will be paying attention to that detail for
Yeah.
sure. Um, Going back to the characters though, and because you mentioned Clem and how he was a favorite for you, what did you think about him blaming himself for basically all the deaths that happened? He kept being very dramatic about it. And when it came to his mom, I was actually very sad because obviously it was not his fault, but I was like, oh no, like it's his mom. Like of course he feels
Hmm.
a bit guilty, and that just made me sad, really sad. I was not expecting her to die. And while it was not his fault, I understand that as her son, it must be such a huge weight to live with. So
Yes.
that must be awful. But the other two, though, just felt a bit melodramatic to me. And I was wondering how you felt about that whole thing, if you thought about anything. Yeah.
Well, I felt like he. It was a response to an event, of course, but
Mhm.
seeing him throughout the novel, I also felt that he had quite a lot of depressive episodes.
Mhm. For sure.
And I feel like if you have a depressive episode like that, then yes, you'll blame yourself for everything, and reason doesn't really come into it.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of felt that was what he was experiencing, and combined with grief, that must be impossible to deal with.
Hmm.
Even when things were more stable later in the novel, I still felt like he just has accepted that this is what his life is now with the
Yeah.
mental illness that he suffered. So yeah, I found him interesting in that way. Of course, it's not classified as such in this book,
Hmm.
um, but the fact that he wanted to do better, that he like chose teaching children over money, also really felt
Yeah.
like he was the kind of character that um, had maybe had episodes of such unhappiness that he understood that nothing is more important than passion.
Mhm.
And yes, unfortunately, his marriage was the successful one, but that's mostly because he's in a Thomas Hardy novel. That was not his fault.
It's not his fault. Yeah, none of it's his fault, really. Yeah.
No, I found him interesting because like he was actually quite decent,
Mhm.
which doesn't happen so often with
Mhm.
Thomas Hardy. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
do.
even though
Mhm.
I did not necessarily enjoy reading that part of his life, I
Mhm.
did find it very interesting what Thomas Hardy decided to do, because it was so deep and so rough what he went through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not a lot of novels would have put in their characters through that. I feel like not in that way.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish we did have like some more time with him, like focused on his feelings and his story rather
Hmm.
than on him, but always in relation to one of his love interests. Sometimes
Yeah.
I do miss that connection a bit more. And of course, like you said, at the time we didn't really classify it as mental health and depression, of course, and dealing with it. But in some ways, it's there, it's present, and obviously, I felt for him a lot because, like you said, of course, he was feeling guilty, even though we know it's not his fault. But that's just the weight that comes with it. And I love those bits, and I wish we had more. I get why we don't, but I wish we had sometimes, not always in relation to other people, but rather him as a man and his experience and his disappointment in the end with how his life turned out to be. It is very sad, but I do like reading about that.
That's it's funny you should say so because to me it was like, okay, enough. Can we have like some dumb villagers having conversations? This is getting really
Some
tough.
comedy, please.
Yeah. Lighten my day.
Maybe you shouldn't be reading Thomas Hardy though, because it will not brighten your day.
No, but yeah, I always feel like, oh, I like happy things. But then I
Yeah,
look at my favorite books of the year and it's all so dark.
exactly. I You would think we like happy things because we are, cheerful people, I would say. But
Yes.
no, I like having my heart broken all the time.
Yes. I don't know what's wrong with us. Yes.
I know, awful, awful.
Yeah.
Um, the whole episode of Mrs. Yeobright visiting Clem and Eustacia and thinking she was rejected, which leads to her death, is brilliantly written. Yes, I loved the switch of perspectives that we had.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
It was so good. It felt like a modern book to me. I don't know why. I
I
was like, oh
agree.
my
It was
God.
breathtaking.
I know. I know. What was that? More of that, please.
I had a lot of, oh, what was she thinking? What was she thinking?
I know. I loved it. I think it might have been one of my favorite parts for sure. Even though,
Yeah.
again, it's tragic and very sad, but it was brilliant. I loved it.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
So good.
also wrote down many plot points rely
Mhm.
on misconception. Did you find that convincing or annoying? And I feel like because that whole bit,
Mhm.
misunderstanding, sorry.
Misunderstanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I didn't really. Well, is it annoying? A little bit, but I feel like it's because you're looking at the scene from the reader's perspective, and so what's going on, the characters don't.
Hmm.
And I feel like it is a very like there's a high possibility of that happening. It felt very genuine to me. It didn't feel forced in a way. So to me, when it happens in books, it is annoying when I don't believe it. Like I think,
Yes.
and this was believable to me, which yes, it is a bit annoying because it would have been very easily fixed, but the way it was written and the way the characters acted felt very real to me, to each one of them. Like each one of them did exactly what I expected them to do. So of course it led to a huge misunderstanding that
Yes.
made sense. So I didn't find it annoying actually. Well, a little bit because but not really because it
Yeah.
felt believable to me. What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. Their actions were in character.
Mm-hmm.
It was believable.
Yeah.
So, and usually, and then I think of like YA fantasy, you like want to throw the book across the room. Like, just have a conversation, people. But
Yeah.
like right now, there were so many legitimate reasons why they did not have that conversation. Like, so many different feelings, mainly pride, but like justified in a way. So, yeah, no, I found
Mm-hmm.
it very well written.
Mm-hmm. It is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while annoying, just because of what it led to,
Hmm.
it still made sense. I feel like it would have been
Yeah.
annoying if like they they went with the typical trope of you only heard half of the conversation and you're taking your own conclusions. That's
I'm
annoying.
very wise. Yeah.
That's annoying. Or it would have been annoying, but fortunately it wasn't.
Oh gosh. It's like typical romance, is
I
what you're
know.
describing right
Oh
now.
my God. There's a reason why I don't really love that genre.
I get
Usually.
I get it.
Um, so yes, I feel like we've touched on that. I had deception, but yes, you mentioned that. Unreliable narration for sure. We've mentioned the ending as well. Was there any other like scene like this one that stood up to you, or any moment, anything else that you would like to highlight, I guess?
Oh, I think one thing that we did talk about is whether this novel contains a good person. I do think we
Oh yeah.
talked about that.
Hmm.
But I'm curious too. I mean, I answered it, but what do you think?
I actually agree with you. If you're talking about Klim, I guess, in
Mm-hmm.
the end, he was a good person. And I do also think that Mrs. Yeobright was a good person, even though, again, maybe her beliefs weren't always aligned with ours
Mm-hmm.
nowadays.
Yeah.
But I do think she had good intentions, and I do think she genuinely cared about her family. I think you could tell that. Um, but honestly, speaking of good people, I think those were the only two, maybe. I do wish we had a bit more from Thomasin now and then, because during some chapters she just felt to me like a very naive person, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, so I wish we could have seen more of her. I wouldn't say she was a bad person necessarily, but I would have liked some more development, perhaps, from her.
Yeah.
Um, so yes,
But
that's
like Diggory Van, like what we know of him, he's a
Mhm,
good person.
I
But
guess.
what we know
Mhm.
of him is the important part, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like we know very little, though. I don't know. Like he does seem like a good person, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
It
know you that
also
well.
it also
Yeah.
feels like he wanted the girl, and like did he do more than we think he did? Like,
Yeah. Mm,
and it's also like, is it creepy? Maybe a little bit. Some
maybe.
things.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. A little bit. I mean, listen, good people can do creepy things. I'm not denying that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's life. But it's a little untrustworthy, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's never white and black, right? There's always some nuance
Mm-hmm.
to it. But I would say if I had to choose the two people that I genuinely found to be good at heart would
Mm-hmm.
be Klim and, well, his mother. Yeah, his
Yeah.
mother. So, do you have anyone else that you would like to mention for that?
I mean, of course, Christian. I feel like the
Oh, right.
poor lad. He had
Right.
good intentions.
Oh my god. Wait, was he the one who asked Eustacia for her hand? Was he the one
he,
who
he
did?
saved her from the guns as well.
That's true. Oh, you're right.
And he tried to resist the game. He tried to resist
I know.
gambling, and he felt so bad. I mean,
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that was a mistake, but it's okay. We forgive him.
yeah, he's easily corrupted.
Oh my god. Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
do
that's
think
true.
he was a nice person. Like he had no
Hmm.
evil intentions towards anyone.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, I mean, like what even is a good person? Because everyone is flawed.
Yes,
So
exactly. Yeah.
very clearly in this book as well.
I think being a good person is just being aware of, first of all, have good values in the first place, but then being aware of the mistakes you make and why you made them
Yeah,
and want to work on yourself, especially to be good to other people as well. Um,
yeah.
but of course, it comes with a lot of nuance. Um,
I mean, he did feel really bad about the money.
he did,
So
he did. That's true. It felt genuine.
yes.
um, the romantic scene of the Rattleman, a great name for a horror movie.
Yes.
I agree. Looking for Thomason's glove in the moonlight. Yes. Um, I was not very invested, but yes, sure.
I was kind of pleased because I was like, no, not another cousin pairing in the end. Because I watched House of Dragon at the same time. I was like, no, I
No, but
cannot.
that's an extreme situation. That's cousins. It's father and daughter. It's brother and sister. It's yeah,
Really?
yeah. Oh
No,
yeah.
no, is it father and daughter? Oh wait, we need to have a discussion after the live show because I think
I,
I missed something.
maybe it's in the book, not in the show. Oops. Okay. Wait. No spoilers. Moving on.
Gagging noises. Okay, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying, sorry.
I did find it cute, and I was kind of relieved that he didn't force like Thomasin and Klim in a marriage that was clearly never
Oh, right.
going to be a love match, as they would say in Bridgerton.
Yeah, that's true. No, that would have been a big mistake. I was also glad
Yeah.
they were not together in the end, because at some point I really thought that was the direction the novel was going to,
Same.
especially
Yeah.
after the other two died. I was like, oh, that's convenient. Now there are no obstacles. um,
Yes.
yeah, so I'm glad that didn't happen for sure.
Yeah.
Um, also, boy is not flawed. just a separate note.
Sure.
Also, I promised him I would say this during the live show. Owning a
Oh.
PS5 and an Xbox it's amazing, Melina. I support it.
The treason! The sheer treason!
It's great. It's great. It's great. I don't know.
Mary! Whose side are you on?
I'm in the side of my two lovely friends. I want both of you to be happy.
I'm
Oh God, are you okay?
leaving, Mary.
And thank you for coming, everyone. We will see you next.
I cannot believe he made you say that. He's in big
He didn't.
trouble.
He didn't. I made a joke and then I said, well, I'll just say it. It's fine.
No, you know what he did? He entrapped my friends to make an extra argument for him to
Yes.
spend Leetna's money.
Yes, he did. And that's his flaw. So he is flawed after all.
There you go, boy, you're flawed.
Oh God. Can't wait for the movie. The Reddleman 2, Drag Me to Hell.
Oh God.
Oh my
I would
God.
actually watch that though.
I would watch that too. Anyway, with all of that said, is there anything else you would like to add about the book overall? I feel like we've touched on a lot of things already, but are there any final thoughts that you would like to share?
I don't think so. No, we've talked about everything.
Yee, look at
How
us.
about you?
No, I don't think so either. I stand by my opinion that I think this was my favorite so far, out of the ones we've read for the read along. Yeah, I think so. Jude was my least favorite, unfortunately. So I think this one stands out. But again, the audiobook may have done some great things for that because it's perfect. Highly recommend.
Yes, I agree.
All right. If that's everything about this book, shall we talk about our next book pick?
Yes.
Which I happen to have right here. So just give me a second. It will be, in case you still haven't seen on our Instagram, this one, The Trumpet Major by Thomas Hardy, which...
Oh, is it Major? I thought it was Mayor.
I've heard the two versions, and I also thought it was Mayor, and then I heard Major, and I was like, is it
Wait,
Major?
but is he
Mayor?
like a soldier thing, like an army thing, or is he like the mayor of a town?
You are asking the wrong person. Because I know nothing about this book.
I think the spelling of that one means the army version, right? Because otherwise, it's...
I think so, because set against the background of the Napoleon Wars is one of Hardy's most fascinating stories of love and desire. All right. So I don't know. I've heard both versions.
Also, I was like, why trumpet mayor of a town? I was like, that's a weird title, but this makes more sense. Like Major.
Major, or Mayor. Vote in the comments.
Someone who has English as a first language, help! We are so confused.
Listen, to be fair, I've heard both versions. So, people are confused as well. It's okay. It's like Babel and Babel. No one knows. It's both. It's
I mean, it's Babel. Who says bubble? That's bubble. That sounds ridiculous.
It's not bubble. Like, anyway. Moving on. This will be our next book for the winter time. Yes. So the live show should be in around March-ish, I would say.
I think so. I think we have we know that I don't know the seasons. So
We don't know the seasons, so it should be in around March, I would say.
yes.
But we will keep you updated on Instagram as well. So, and we also have a Discord, I forgot to mention, but yes, we do. So, I will also post some updates there. Everything will be linked in the description. So, yes, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for joining us. And we'll hope to see you soon for our next live show or some reading sprints. Who knows?
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for being here.